Welcome into Sports Memos Betting Podcast, Super Bowl Props Podcast with Mid-Major Matt. Mid-Major Matt, welcome into the pod. How are you?
Happy, Drew. Super Bowl Sunday coming, and a lot of people look at the lines and the totals. I'm really excited to at least give some information out and some picks on the props that there are millions of when it comes to this game on Sunday.
Well, happy to have you, man. There are a ton of props up there, and this is actually this is a podcast I'm really looking forward to, Matt. This is an interesting one, and we're going to be talking actually specifically college basketball cross-sport props here, guys. These numbers are coming from the Westgate here in Las Vegas, so look for your alternative props, and this is the cross-sport props, and we're mainly doing college basketball versus the props in the Super Bowl here. And Matt, we'll start off first with Wright State Green Bay points plus 74.5 versus Jimmy G passing yards. So guys, this is the college basketball Wright State versus Green Bay game, catching plus 74.5 points. You can either bet on that or bet on Jimmy G passing yards being more. Matt, have at it, man. What are you thinking here?
Well, I mean, this is the perfect place to start as a mid-major guy. Wright State and Green Bay is going to be one of my favorite games on Sunday besides the actual football game itself. These two played back on December 28th. It was a 90-84 game. So let's go off of that. That means that's 174 points. You add the 74.5, and my math's not great, but that takes you to pretty close to 250. And so you sit here and you say, okay, well, what do you think for Jimmy G? And we saw the 49ers in the playoffs. You know, they haven't done a lot with Jimmy G. They've done a lot of the running. They've kind of let Garoppolo be the game manager here. Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown for 200 yards or less 8 times this season. So obviously they've played 18 games. 8 times is almost about half the times. Wright State plays the 45th quickest tempo as of today, the day of the taping. That could change. Green Bay plays with the 17th quickest tempo. And Ken Pomeroy, who we use for a lot of this stuff, says that this game's going to see about 168 points. Remember, the first game saw 174 points. There's a couple of adjustments here, so 168. So if you take the 168 plus the 74.5 and you do the Jimmy G passing yards, I actually think we have a chance that Wright State and Green Bay are going to take that number. I kind of like that side. You're getting 74.5 passing yards before anything begins. So I think that the Wright State Green Bay game, let's say it gets to that 174, 175 number, add the points in. Is Jimmy G going to get to 250 passing yards? I don't necessarily know. Now, this is based off of how I think the Super Bowl is going to go. So I think that the Wright State Green Bay game is going to get plenty of points. You add on the 74.5 there, and I think it's a decent wager to be able to take that points in that game over the quarterback's passing yards for the 49ers.
I like where you're going with that. First prop up here in the cross-sport props, Wright State Green Bay plus the points. They're getting 74.5. And that's going up against Jimmy G's total passing yards in the Super Bowl. So first one up, first one down here, Wright State Green Bay plus 74.5. We got the next one here, Green Bay points plus 22.5 versus the yardage of all the TDs combined. So kind of correlated with the first one, I'm guessing here, Matt. But have at the second one.
So you would think that Ken Pomeroy, once again, has 81 points for Green Bay in the game. So that's where my kind of baseline is. They scored 84 last meeting between these two teams. Green Bay's got a pretty good offense, but as we said, 17th quickest tempo, playing against another fast team, which means there should be plenty of possessions in this game. The big thing for me is in terms of the yardage of all the touchdowns combined. I don't necessarily think there will be as many touchdowns as other people do, hint, hint. So therefore, this is kind of correlated to how you think the Super Bowl will go. If you love the over and you think that there's going to be 7, 8 touchdowns, and if you think Kansas City's going to win, chances are one of those is going to be one of those 50-yard specials. So if there's 8 touchdowns and one of them's 50 yards, then 7 other touchdowns to get, 103 yards total. So like to me, a guy who's leaning towards the under here, at least as of this taping, I don't love this prop enough. But if you're out there who love the total, you think there's going to be a ton of points, you think Kansas City's going to win, then you're looking at this prop and you're saying, boy, 103.5, 102.5, that's a really good number here. I'm leaning to the yardage. So this one's a personal preference. Green Bay's probably going to score 75 to 80 points. So use that as a baseline here, plus the 22.5. The over bettors are going to look at the yardage for all TDs combined. The under bettors are probably going to look at Green Bay here and say, look, I don't think we're going to get that 50, 60-yard touchdown pass or touchdown run that Kansas City is famous for.
Gotcha. He's Mid-Major Matt on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt, sportsmemo.com. We got a couple other here we're going to be breaking down in the cross sports for the Super Bowl props. Miami points plus 15.5 versus Monsters rushing yards, Matt.
So Miami's going through a little bit of an issue. The one thing to look for here when it comes to Miami is Chris Lake's going to play in this game Sunday. He didn't play once again against Virginia Tech, although they scored 71 points in each game so far without him. These last two contests, they beat Virginia Tech, and then they also lost to North Carolina as well. So if you kind of use a baseline there of 71, it was a 66-58 game the first time these two teams played, Miami versus Pittsburgh, and you're getting 50.5, remember. Now, Raheem Mostert, once again, he's had 278 yards in the postseason, but he's only had 60 or more yards 5 times. He's probably going to see the ball more if Tevin Coleman's not 100%. And if you think, once again, that the 49ers are going to win the game, then you think they're going to do it on the ground. So to me, once again, this is a correlated bet. Mostert is going to get plenty of carries. If you think they do what they did to Derrick Henry, then you're probably looking at Miami here with the 66-ish points plus 15.5. So you're looking at 81.5. Do you think Raheem Mostert's capable of 82 yards in this game? So the correlation here is if you like the 49ers, they're probably going to run it a lot. They're probably going to use Mostert a lot. You probably like Mostert in this bet. If you think that the 49ers are going to stifle them a bit, hold your nose, take the Miami Hurricanes, and hope in a game that's probably not going to see a ton of points, hope that Miami can help you out and get to 60, and then that's 75.5 that you're looking at for Mostert.
Okay, another ACC game here. We got Pitt in the points plus 2.5 versus Tyreek Hill's receiving yards here, Matt.
So Ken Pomeroy has 72 points for Pittsburgh in this game. They're playing Miami. It's a game that's going to see a lot of defense, but it's an ACC game. It's on Sunday, so of course they're going to throw it in the props list. The thing is, everybody thinks about Tyreek Hill. They think about these big numbers, and they see the long catches, and they see him running along. But actually, he's only been over 70 receiving yards 6 times this season, with the last time coming back in Week 16 against Chicago. So he's essentially one of those classic cases of boom or bust. So this is one of those things. I'm probably not going to play this one because I think there could be a lot of defense between Miami and Pittsburgh. It's not going to give you a lot of numbers, and all Tyreek Hill has to do is break one, and he might win this bet rather easily. So for those of you who think it's easy towards Tyreek Hill, I just say over 70 yards 6 times this season. It's not a guarantee, so therefore this is probably not one of the props I'm going to be looking at here, but it's just some information for you here. The Tyreek Hill is not exactly a guy you blindly want to bet the over on because he is a boom and bust wide receiver.
Well, I mean, I'm writing these down, Matt, things I'm likely going to tail you on, and as you were talking about that, I liked where you were going with that in terms of when Tyreek Hill has gone over the 70-yard mark. And you talk about Pitt, and it's going to be a defensive matchup here, but still, I mean, they could touch 70, right?
They could. As we said, Ken Pomeroy has 72. The last meeting, though, was 66-58 in Miami. So, and Pittsburgh's got a solid offense, but I don't see a lot of pace in this game. So it's going to be one of those classic cases that if you take Pittsburgh, you're hoping it's a bust Tyreek Hill. And if you're taking Tyreek Hill. And so here's the thing, Drew, and this is one of the things we talk about. There are so many props here. I printed out the list. This is all the props here that you can do. So if you don't like a prop, don't feel like you have to take it because there's going to be something that you like. We're going to touch on a bunch of others, and we're only talking college basketball. There's hockey ones, baseball ones, golf ones, soccer ones, NBA ones, NHL ones. So, there is basically a cross-sport prop for anybody. There's Yankees win total in here. There's Las Vegas Golden Knights playoff wins. It's ridiculous, and that's why I think the prop market is almost better than the betting on the total on the side, especially in such a close Super Bowl like we're going to have on Sunday. Absolutely.
I think there's way more. I'm going to have a lot more money riding on the props, Matt, than I am a side or a total. It's just makes the game a lot more fun as well. Hey, let's talk an interesting one here, Matt. New Jersey schools, which includes Rider, Monmouth, St. Peter's, versus 49ers and Chiefs rushing yards.
All right, so Rider's playing Monmouth. Ken Pomeroy has Monmouth winning 77-74. So my Syracuse math says that's 151. St. Peter's, whose offense is not very good, they're taking on Siena, and he has 66. So if you add the 151, the 66, it's 217 yards, 217 points. So that's your baseline. And that's Ken Pomeroy. Things could change. The Rider-Monmouth game, I think we'll see about 150 points. So I think that's about right because both teams have good offense. There's going to be some pace in that game. St. Peter's is going to be the fly in the ointment here. So I went back and looked during the regular season. The 49ers ran the ball for 144.1 rushing yards. The Chiefs ran for 98.1 rushing yards. Now, that's during the regular season. And if you flip the script on defense, the Niners have allowed 112.6 rushing yards, and the Chiefs have allowed 128.2 rushing yards. So basically here, you're getting the 3 New Jersey schools plus the 11.5 versus the Niners and the Chiefs rushing yards. And so, before we get into this for a second, all these props, as I said, are based off of what I think. So what I did was on Sunday, I essentially sat down and I said, all right, how do I think this Super Bowl is going to go? Who's going to score? What's the flow? How many field goals and everything? Because I want to think about how the Super Bowl is going to go before I even look at the prop stuff. Because I don't want the price of props to affect how I think about the game. If you open up this packet here and you start looking at things before you figure out how the game's going to go, I don't think you're doing it the right way. I think you need to know how many field goals are going to be. You're not going to know Raheem Mostert yards, but you're going to have a general idea. If the 49ers are going to win, Mostert's going to be busy. Jimmy G's going to have some crucial passes, some touchdown passes. If the Chiefs are going to win, then it's going to be Mahomes. It's going to be Kelsey. It's going to be Tyreek Hill with a little bit of Damian Williams sprinkled in. So to me, when we talk about these props, this is how I think it's going to go based off of what my Super Bowl is. So you could be completely different. Drew, you could be completely different as to how your Super Bowl is. We're not going to give out our selections or anything like that. But that's what I think when I look at a lot of this stuff. So 49ers, Chiefs rushing yards, I think the 49ers could be busy in terms of rushing. I think that they're going to have the Jimmy G game manager role continue. The question is the Chiefs. How much is Damian Williams going to be involved? If they get behind, are they going to abandon the run completely, which we know Andy Reid does quite often. Being an Eagles guy, I saw him, throw it 50 times a game sometimes. When you have Patrick Mahomes, why would you ever run the ball? But remember that game against the Titans, Drew. In the second half, they ran it a lot more and took the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So that's why this is going to be fascinating, and that's why a lot of these prop bets could be completely different between what I think and what you think how the game's going to go.
Well said, Matt. Hey, we got another one here. New York schools point total. We're talking Iona, Manhattan, Niagara, St. John's, Marist, Canisius, and Siena. All of those schools – and minus 79.5. So it's a little bit of math here versus Chiefs net yards. That's the bet. Chiefs net yards more or all the New York schools college basketball point total. Matt, have at it, man.
This is the only way the MAC is going to be involved in Super Bowl Sunday because the MAC is usually not games that I enjoy. I've dipped into them a couple times. They're very tough because these schools aren't very good and they play in three-quarters empty gyms. So let's break it down here. So Iona and Manhattan are playing each other. According to Ken Pomeroy, it's going to be a 69-64 game. Manhattan is slow as molasses. And Iona is not the best shooting team, so he's got 133 points there. Niagara's playing Quinnipiac, who likes a little bit of pace. Niagara's not good defensively. We could see more possessions here. He thinks 73 points for Niagara. Marist is one of the worst offensive teams in the country. They're playing Canisius. Ken Pomeroy has 130 points, 71-59. Siena, we talked about St. Peter's in the New Jersey schools. Siena's offense is okay, but once again, they don't play with great pace, and St. Peter's doesn't allow you to play with great pace. Ken Pomeroy has 65. And then the team we all have heard of, St. John's. They're hosting Georgetown. Georgetown's a terrible defense. They play up and down. You see a lot of Georgetown games that involve a lot of points here. And if you look at these two teams, they played earlier, and there was a bunch of points there. So I did all the math already for you, so you don't have to worry about 478 points according to Ken Pomeroy. I think that's not a bad baseline. If you want to make it an even 500, let's make it an even 480 because we're doing the 79.5 here. So 480 minus 79.5 is 400.5 net yards for the Chiefs. Well, during the postseason so far, they've averaged 419 yards per game on offense. Regular season, 379.2. Adjust the postseason line a little bit because the 49ers defense is better than a lot of the defenses they've seen so far this postseason. Certainly better than the Titans. And I would say it's definitely better than the Ravens as well. You look at the 49ers regular season, so like the 379.2, it's probably somewhere between the 419 and the 379.2. Once again, the correlation is if you think the Chiefs are going to win, you're definitely taking the Chiefs because you're thinking they're going over 400 yards. I don't see the Chiefs winning a 24-21 type game. If you think the 49ers are going to win, then you think that they're most likely going to win a lower scoring game here. And so you're going to look at the New York point total here. I think there's going to be people who walk up, they see 6, 7 teams here, and they say, oh, I've got a better chance here. It's not a guarantee. That's why you're losing 79.5 here. So if you're a Chiefs guy, you like to back the Chiefs, I would take the Chiefs net yards here. If you think they're going to lose a lower scoring game here, then I would take the New York school point total here because as you know, you are getting 7 teams and there's a good chance they're going to approach 500 points with those 7 teams.
I like it, Matt. Good breakdown in terms of which way you want to go here. Did you want to explain like anything with how you kind of attack props in the Super Bowl? I know you already touched on it a little bit, but anything to throw out there, any advice to any sports bettors for the first time?
So for props, there's 2 bets that I like. There's the bets that are around -110 that I really think are going to hit. Let's say I would never bet the coin toss. First off, don't bet the coin toss. Like that's just true. I know there's trends with the coin toss, but don't worry about the coin toss. But like, you know, I'm a guy who likes to spread my money around a lot more. When it comes to the Super Bowl, it's once a year. I'd rather have, 10 smaller bets than 5 bigger bets. So I have the ones that are -110. I'll even go as high as -115 or -120, but I really like it. I think they're going to win. I'm really confident in so-and-so to do whatever, And then there's the long shot bets, and there's going to be props that I take that are plus money. I'll tell you one prop I like, and there's no real reason why. I think Kyle Juszczyk scores in this game. There's no reason why. He hasn't even registered stats the last couple games. He only has 1 touchdown, but like he's the type of guy that you're going to get some value on to score a touchdown, whether it's 4-1, 5-1. So I'll sprinkle a little bit on to just say, look, I know it's probably going to lose, but if some case, just like the bettors who always bet on the safeties, Drew, they put a little bit of money on, and guess what? If a safety hits, then it covers all the other the plus bets that you take. So I'm going to put 5 or 6 plus bets down, and if you hit half of them, then you've covered all your losses as well. So, like, I like to spread my money. I like to do some -110s and -115s, 120s that I think are really going to hit. I'll never go to the -140s, -150s, even if I think that they're going to definitely hit because I just don't think the value's there because I'd rather take more +110s than more -150s. Finally, the other thing is don't always go to the over. The Vegas wants you to take the over because the betting public doesn't want to go to their Super Bowl party. They don't want to have them sitting there eating their chips, their wings, whatever, drinking their beverages. And nobody wants to root for the under. Nobody wants to root against points. So, like, they know that you're going to go and you're going to take the yes on a lot of props and you're going to take the over. Like, I know a lot of you probably like the over on Patrick Mahomes, and it may hit. But I'm just saying, don't blindly go to the over for every bet. And I saw what you said when you did your podcast with Teddy, and Teddy said a lot of the same things. And when you were on hosting Bet on it too, like the over is for the squares. I think the sharps are going to find certain bets and take the under because the value is going to be there for a lot of the unders.
Yeah, and I think there's really something to that with all the new bettors coming in. So very well said there, Matt. Follow him on Twitter at @midmajormatt. Matt, what other cross-sport props did you want to throw out here for college basketball and the Super Bowl?
So let's talk about the South Dakota-Omaha game, right up my alley here. And they have 2 interesting ones here. So we'll start with the first one, which is Nebraska-Omaha, the Mavericks. Their first half points plus 4.5. So you have the first half points, and then you get 4.5. And it's against Emmanuel Sanders' receiving yards. And for me, you look at Omaha, they scored 45 points in the first half of their last meeting against South Dakota. At home, Omaha has scored 39, 31, 33, 36, 37 in their last 5 home games. This is a very potent offense. They're not as fast as they were last year, but you get that 4.5, which I think is going to be key here because if you look at Emmanuel Sanders, he's had 10 catches the last 5 games on 17 targets for just 128 yards. So if you average out the 128 yards over 5 games, it's 25 or so. I don't think Sanders is going to have that good a game. I've been a guy who's a proponent for Kendrick Bourne. I think Deebo Samuel's kind of passed him. And I think Sanders is that guy who will get the tough catch on 3rd and 8. So I think if he does start racking up the targets, I think it's more like 3rd and 5. 1st and 10, he gets 7 yards. So, like, I think the Omaha first half is worth a look here. because I don't think Emmanuel Sanders is going to have as good of a game. Once again, and I know this is a broken record, this is how I project the Super Bowl. Your projection could be different. You could love Emmanuel Sanders, and so you think I'm crazy, but I do not. The other half of this game is South Dakota points, and Ken Pomeroy has about 78 here. These two teams played a 91-81 game in South Dakota. Kelsey's a little different. It's South Dakota points minus 2.5 versus Travis Kelce receiving yards, and we've seen Travis Kelce go nuts, but Travis Kelce has had 80 yards or more just 8 times out of the, 17, 18 games they've played. So, it feels like it's one of those situations where early on, if he's locked in on Kelce and he's racking up the targets, then this bet's going to be in trouble if you don't like Kelce receiving yards. But Niners haven't been that bad against tight ends this year. They've got the mobile linebackers. It's going to be hard to completely shut down Travis Kelce. So I don't know necessarily if I have a wager in this one. It's more of, if you like Kelce, you're taking the Kelce receiving yards. But if you think he's going to have a 50, 60 type point receiving yard game, then look at South Dakota, because they're going to score a lot of points in a game that's going to see a lot of possessions. And minus 2.5. So let's say they score 80. Kelsey's got to get 77. Has got to get 77.5 receiving yards, 78 receiving yards for the win. So that's kind of your gauge there. If you like Kelce, take Kelce receiving yards. If you think he's going to struggle a little bit, be kind of hidden in the shadows a little bit, then take South Dakota, because I think they're good for probably close to 80 points in this game.
Well, I mean, Matt, I'm just looking here, and I think that the receiving yards for the tight end is very difficult to kind of handicap, in terms of how is Kelce going to do against this defense, just because I think some of his yards, I mean, it's going to work out good for the Chiefs if this happens, is going to be on broken plays, because, Pat Mahomes is making some with his feet, and then, Kelce breaks open late. So I just figured, that part is very volatile to this handicap, right?
Yeah, it is. And that's why, you really, we're doing a lot of the research, and that's why you guys come to our videos. But, there's actually Yahoo, when you do fantasy football on Yahoo, they do a great job of breaking down how each unit does against certain defenses. So, there are certain teams, we all know Arizona was a sieve when it came to tight ends, and so we would always take the over on tight ends when they played Arizona. I'm pretty sure 49ers have been a good team against tight ends, but go to Yahoo, go to ESPN and see if they still have their fantasy matchup stuff up and see, because there are certain teams who are good. Now, Travis Kelce is going to be a guy who's probably going to be busy. But once again, as Drew said, are they short passes? Are they short catches? Or are they long catches? We know Kelce can break off a long run. We know if there's future bets with George Kittle, we've seen him go and catch 20, 25-yard passes. So that's a key to this bet here, because it's a big name, Travis Kelce, and you're going to look at South Dakota and you're going to be like, well, wait a second, South Dakota, I don't know anything about them. I'm just going to blindly take Kelce. Well, I'm just saying, be careful in that, because there's going to be a lot of points in this South Dakota, Nebraska, Omaha game. So it's how confident you feel on the tight end in this matchup.
Yeah, that was a good breakdown, man, in terms of where fantasy kind of intersects with sports betting in terms of handicapping and getting that information. Good stuff there, Matt. Follow him on Twitter at MidMajorMatt. Matt, do you want to throw out anything else before we shut this down?
Well, so I'll do one more. The college basketball ones, and there's plenty. I mean, I looked. There's a Trae Young prop. There's a Zion prop. So, once again, I want to make sure to tell people, don't lock yourself in if you don't like it. When you get to the window, or when you get to your sports book on Sunday, if you see the list, A, don't get overwhelmed, but B, don't feel like you have to play everything. So if you don't like any of the ones we've talked about, as I said, there's 900 of them, and if you're an NBA guy, then look at the NBA ones. I'll do one more here, because we talk about Illinois. I'll do the Big Ten, because I know we probably have a lot of people who watch the Big Ten games. Illinois is playing Iowa on Sunday. And so Illinois-Iowa margin of victory plus 2.5 is versus the 49ers Chiefs first quarter points. So that's an interesting one here. Illinois and Iowa, according to Ken Pomeroy, is going to be a 6-point spread here. And we know Illinois, a lot of people like. In Iowa, they score a lot of points. Their defense isn't the best. So it's kind of like you're almost doing dual handicapping here, because you're saying, now, wait a second, how much do I think they're going to win by? And then the first quarter points here is, and Drew, I don't know about you, I like occasionally the trend of first quarter unders.
Oh, yeah.
Because it feels like the teams are getting used to each other, the extra long pregame, the extra long anthem, everything's kind of thrown off a little bit. And especially if the 49ers win the coin toss and get the ball first, I feel like they're going to send their message by going on a 12, 13-play drive that's going to kill 8 minutes. So let's say they kick a field goal, and then Kansas City gets the ball back, and Kansas City maybe goes on one of their quick drives, and so there's 10 points right there. And I think if I looked, 10 points is the wager here for the first quarter point total. So use that. Do you think that the Illinois-Iowa game is going to be close, or do you think one of them is going to blow out? Use 10 as the baseline. Use the Vegas numbers. They give you a lot of these numbers here. When we talked about the Raheem Mostert rushing yards, use what Vegas thinks is Raheem Mostert's rushing yards as your baseline when you go up against Miami, because they give you what they think the answers are on these sheets. So therefore, it's like a test that's an open note test here. So don't make it too difficult, because they're telling you essentially what they think it is. If you want to tweak the numbers a little bit to what you think it is. So 10 points in the first quarter is what Vegas thinks. Is Iowa or Illinois going to win by 7 or 8? Are they going to win by 1 or 2? Are they going to win by 10 or 12? I don't think it's a double-digit game, right? I mean, Drew, when you think of Illinois and Iowa, should be a somewhat close game on that Sunday, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, probably I would just go off of what Ken Palm has, and I don't really have a beat on either of these two teams, Matt.
Right, yeah. I don't do a ton of Big Ten wagering, which is why I use Ken Palm. He's got 6 for the spread between the two of them. So that's my baseline. Once again, think smarter, not harder. You've got the numbers on these sheets, and you've got the numbers on Ken Palmer if you're a college basketball guy. If you're not, and you're doing this betting on Sunday, Vegas puts out the spreads on all these games. And so, you kind of get an idea. So, we're here to give you the information, but also the sheets and this stuff, they give you a lot of the information. It's your job to tweak it, and it's your job to think about how the Super Bowl is going to be. If you think it's going to be a 35-28 Super Bowl, and you think there's going to be a ton of points and everybody's going to take the over, which we just told you don't do, but you're going to look at these props differently as opposed to if it's a 24-20 Super Bowl and you think there's a lot of field goals and stuff like that.
He's Mid-Major Matt on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. Pretty good in the NFL, Matt, this year since, the end of October, 60% NFL? What'd you do right, man, grading yourself as a handicapper?
Well, I think, look, I used to be when a lot of people, with regards to the NFL, it is the toughest because there's less games and Vegas studies these things more than anybody else. I used to be a guy who didn't look at the situations, and I just started to embrace situations. If there's a time when the Bengals are playing the Ravens and it's a sandwich game, you swallow it, you take the Bengals, and you hope they hang in there. So I started embracing the situations, and I started spending more time on it. My college football was a little less towards the end of the season, and I did a little bit more in the NFL because I know that people want to wager on the NFL, and they want somebody who's good on the NFL. So, for this game, it's really tough, Drew. Obviously, we're not going to give out our selections here, but this is a really tough game because I could see it going a bunch of different ways. This is not Patriots-Rams, or this is not Eagles-Patriots, which didn't go the way I think a lot of people thought anyway. There's a bunch of different, choose-your-own-adventure paths that you could say. 49ers win in a rout, 49ers win a close game, a high-scoring game, low-scoring game. There are a bunch of different ways you could go with this Super Bowl.
Oh, well, I mean, we can give our selections out here. I think this is a tough one, though, Matt. I think it's a really difficult handicap. I think anybody out there that's oh, man, this side for sure, this is the biggest bet. I root you on, but I'm wondering what you're really seeing here, where the advantage is. I kind of lean towards the under just because it's the over's been pushed up with the public remembering what they saw last, but also I guess defense wins championships. That's what's leaning me towards the San Francisco side. But Matt, we're up against it time wise, man. What else do you want to throw out here? Super Bowl, cross sport props. Maybe leave us with a best bet if you could.
So I looked over the list here on the Westgate's list, and as I said, there's a ton of them. There was a bet actually that I liked in terms of the NBA. Actually, I know that's not necessarily my forte, but I did some research here, and I looked, and on one of these pages they have Nikola Jokic. The Denver Nuggets are playing the Pistons, and it's Jokic points, rebounds, and assists minus 11.5 versus DeMarcus Robinson receiving yards. Well, I don't think DeMarcus Robinson's going to be that busy. I think if he is, he's going to get 1 catch or 2 catches. And we know Jokic is capable of a triple-double. And also, I hate to put this angle in there, but you've got a lot of players going with the Mamba mentality here, and they're going for that extra mile, and they're trying to put up big stats to impress Kobe and to show everybody that they have their inner Kobe. I think Nikola Jokic puts up a triple-double here. I think he gets I don't know, 20-something points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists here. So that's like 45, 47. Like, I think there's a chance that Nikola Jokic crushes DeMarcus Robinson on Sunday. So I think Jokic points, rebounds, and assists versus Robinson receiving yards prop is one of my favorites here on the list.
All right. Going NBA for best bets, breaking it down on the college cross-sport props for the Super Bowl. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We got a coupon code here for the podcast, MMM29 at checkout at sportsmemo.com for mid-major Mets, 3-day all-access package for just $29. Coupon code MM29 at checkout. Best of luck with your bets, guys.